Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm sharing a story that you might have actually lived through yourself, and trust me, it's a love story. Are you ready? Let's go! She was 57 years old, she had run that school for decades, and she thought she had seen everything. But the moment the new gym teacher walked through her door, something shifted that she could not explain. What she discovered about that 31-year-old man in the weeks that followed was something so deeply private, so heartbreaking, that it completely destroyed every wall she had built around herself for years. Oh girls, pour yourself something warm and sit down, because I have to tell you about a woman named Margaret. I heard the story a few months ago, and I have not been able to stop thinking about it since. Margaret was 57 years old, the principal of a large public high school in Atlanta, Georgia. She had given 30 years of her life to that building. 30 years of early mornings, difficult parents, budget meetings, graduation ceremonies, and everything in between. She knew every creak in the hallway floors. She knew which cafeteria light flickered when it rained. She knew her staff by the sound of their footsteps. Margaret was not the kind of woman who got surprised easily. She had seen everything, or at least that is what she believed. Her personal life, well, that was a different story. Margaret had been divorced for 11 years. Her 2 children were grown and living in other states. She came home every evening to a quiet house, made dinner for one, and told herself she was perfectly fine with all of it. And maybe she was. Or maybe she had simply gotten so good at being alone that she had forgotten what the alternative felt like. She had stopped expecting anything different. She had stopped expecting anything at all. That September, Margaret had an opening on her staff. The physical education teacher had retired in the spring, and she needed someone new. The applications came in, she reviewed them carefully, conducted the interviews professionally, and hired a man named Daniel. Daniel was 31 years old. He had a degree in kinesiology from Georgia State University and 3 years of teaching experience at a middle school across town. His references were excellent. His interview was calm and articulate. Margaret hired him on a Tuesday afternoon, shook his hand, and thought nothing more of it. The first time she really noticed him, truly noticed him, was about 2 weeks into the school year. She was walking through the gymnasium during her afternoon rounds, clipboard in hand, doing what she always did. The students were running drills. Daniel was moving between them, correcting their form, encouraging the ones who were struggling, firm but never unkind. Margaret slowed her pace without realizing it. There was something about the way he carried himself, not arrogance, not performance, just a kind of quiet steadiness that she had not seen in a long time. She stood there for perhaps 30 seconds longer than she needed to, then walked on and told herself it meant nothing. But it kept happening, small things. He always held the door open for the custodial staff. He stayed late on Fridays to restock the equipment room without being asked. He remembered the names of every student by the end of the first week. One afternoon, Margaret passed his classroom and heard him telling a struggling student very gently that the body does not fail you, it just needs more time than the mind is willing to give it. As she stopped in the hallway and stood there completely still, with a feeling she could not name pressing quietly against the inside of her chest. She started finding reasons to speak with him, nothing unusual, nothing that anyone would notice. She would stop by after school to ask about a student or mention a scheduling update that could have easily been an email. Daniel was always respectful, always appropriate, always warm without being familiar. But sometimes, during those brief conversations, he would get a certain look in his eyes. Distant for just a moment, like a door opening onto a room, he quickly closed again. Margaret noticed it every time, and every time she told herself it was none of her business. Then came the evening that changed everything. It was a Thursday in late October. Margaret had stayed well past 7 in the evening finishing reports. She was locking her office when she noticed the lights still on in the staff lounge. She pushed the door open and found Daniel sitting alone at the table, still in his work clothes, staring at nothing. He did not hear her come in. She almost backed away quietly. Instead, she heard herself say his name. He looked up and something in his face, just for one unguarded second, was completely raw. He recovered quickly, smiled, said he was just catching up on paperwork. But Margaret had been reading people for 30 years. She sat down across from him and said, with the same calm voice she used for everything, that he did not have to tell her anything, but that she was not leaving until she knew he was all right. What came out over the next hour was not what she expected. Lord Daniel told her slowly and carefully, as though he had never said any of it out loud before, about a condition he had lived with since he was 19 years old. A chronic pain condition affecting his spine, invisible to everyone around him, managed with strict discipline and daily physical therapy. He had never told an employer, he had never told most of his friends. He had built his entire career around physical strength and endurance, and every single day was a negotiation between what his body could do and what the world expected of it. He had never been in a serious relationship because he was terrified of the moment someone would look at him differently once they knew. He had spent his entire adult life being the strong one, the capable one, the one who held everything together. And underneath all of it, he was exhausted in a way that had no end in sight. Margaret listened to every word. She did not interrupt. She did not offer solutions. She did not look at him with pity, because she understood instinctively that pity was the last thing he needed. When he finished, the room was very quiet, and then she told him in the same steady voice that she had spent 11 years being perfectly fine, and that perfectly fine was one of the loneliest places she had ever lived. They sat there together in the staff lounge of that Atlanta high school until almost 9 in the evening, talking about things that neither of them had said to anyone in years. Girls, I think about Margaret and Daniel a lot. Not because their story is dramatic, although it is. I think about them because of what happened in that staff lounge on a Thursday night in October. Two people who had gotten very good at carrying their weight alone, sitting across a table from each other and deciding, without planning to put some of it down. Margaret did not go looking for anything that year. She was not hoping for a second chapter. She had closed that book so long ago, she had forgotten where she put it. And yet, life has this way of walking through a door you stopped expecting anyone to open. She was 57 years old, and she thought she had seen everything. She had not seen Daniel yet. And Daniel, who had spent more than a decade convinced that knowing him fully would drive people away, had not yet met a woman who would listen to the whole truth and not move an inch. Sometimes the most heartbreaking stories are the ones that are still going. If this story stayed with you the way it stayed with me, I want to hear from you. Leave a comment below and tell me about a moment when someone surprised you, when a person turned out to be so much more than what you first saw, when a conversation you did not plan to have turned out to be the one that mattered most. And if you know someone who needs to hear a story like this today, share this video with them. Because some people are walking around right now convinced that their best chapters are behind them. Maybe they just need a reminder that they have not met everyone yet. Subscribe if you want more stories like this one. I will be right here, same table, same cup of tea, same honest conversation. I will see you next time, girls.